in human rights in the country. In recent days, videos have emerged of men and women being publicly lashed for allegedly committing adultery or theft in the northeast of the country. Despite the hardline stance, a small pocket of resistance remains and continues to fight the Taliban. They're known as the National Resistance Front of Afghanistan. With me now is Maisam Nazary, Head of Foreign Relations for the group. Mr. Nazary, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. I just want you to bring our viewers up to date on the current situation in Afghanistan.
Thank you, Yalda. So speaking about the current situation, of course, the situation is dire. It's deteriorating as every day passes. Unfortunately, since August 2021, a terrorist group, a criminal organization, has hijacked the country. And as every day passes, the political crisis, humanitarian crisis, economic crisis, and security crisis is becoming much worse. You have terrorists running the country. Afghanistan, once again, has become a hub, a haven for 21 international and regional terrorist groups. At the same time, Afghanistan is posing a direct threat towards regional security and global security with these groups operating inside. And the Taliban, for the past year, have shown a complete incompetence when it comes to ruling and governing a whole country. They haven't been able to manage anything. There is no law and order in the country. Basically, it's a state of anarchy at the moment.
You're not seeing mass uprising, though, across the country, are you? You're not seeing the kind of demonstrations that we're seeing in Iran at the moment, for example?
Well, the situation, circumstances in every country is different. Of course, in Afghanistan, it's a bit different, and historically, people haven't risen up against oppressors within a short time span. But for the past year, the National Resistance Front has been able to expand, and that itself shows that the people are convinced that resistance against a terrorist group that has hijacked the country is the only solution.
Tell me about the resistance, because there has been some criticism that you're not based in the country. There are people who are fighting on behalf of the National Resistance Front, but the base itself is in Tajikistan.
No, politically we're outside, but militarily we're inside. This is a unified organization. Our military organization and operations are all inside Afghanistan. We have a command and control center. We have a clear chain of command going up to the commander-in-chief and the leader of the National Resistance Front. And our successes has shown this in the past 7 months, especially since the fighting season started last spring.
We saw just a few days ago, or a few weeks ago, the desecration of the tomb of Masiam Nazary, the resistance leader who fought against the Soviet Union. If you have forces inside Panjshir, how is that happening?
Well, let me give you a quick summary of what has happened since last year. Last year, we withdrew from the main valley, went to the remote valleys of Panjshir, basically controlling 60% and the Taliban controlling 40%. Last year, at this time of the year, we were in survival mode. We were having difficulties in Panjshir and in Underab, an adjacent valley and a neighboring valley from Panjshir. And we didn't know if we would survive during the winter months. Yet, we were successful of not only sustaining our forces, but expanding to 12 other provinces, and we started fighting actively in 6 provinces from May onwards.
So have you been able to capture any areas in the north at the moment?
Of course. For the past 7 months, in May, for example, we liberated 2 districts in Panjshir. In September, a district in Nuristan, and in October, first week of October, hundreds of kilometers away from Panjshir, we liberated Shekai district in Badakhshan province, kept it for 24 hours, and then withdrew. The reason why we're not sustaining control over these liberated areas, districts and provinces, is because we're not in that phase yet. We're fighting an unconventional war. We don't have enough resources to liberate them and sustain control.
Why don't you have enough resources? I mean, this is the first time in Afghanistan's 40-year long conflict that a resistance force is not being supported by some international group or force.
Well, history is much different than that. For example, in the early 1980s, when our resistance against the Soviets first formed, that was led by Commander Ahmad Shah Massoud. Unfortunately, the West or the international community didn't initially support him, but he was able to successfully form a resistance front against the Soviets. The same from 1997 up to 1998, we were ignored, but we were very successful. In the past year, we've had limitations when it comes to resources, but we've been successful. However, in order for us to move to phase 2, meaning to liberate and sustain control over liberated areas, we will need the assistance of the international community, because this isn't a civil war. It's the continuation of the global war on terror. We're not only fighting the Taliban, we're fighting 21 international and regional terrorist groups that will pose a direct threat towards global and regional security.
Are you seeing any indication that you will get that kind of support?
Not at the moment. Unfortunately, Afghanistan once again is being ignored, as it was in the 1990s. Most focus is on other conflicts and other areas, but Afghanistan isn't going away. The situation in Afghanistan is deteriorating as we speak. The Taliban have shown their weaknesses. They're disintegrating as every day passes. They're fracturing. There's internal conflict and fighting within the Taliban. And so a void is coming. If the international community doesn't take this void and vacuum into consideration, and the last remaining democratic and anti-terrorist forces are not capable and strong enough to fill that vacuum, you'll have other terrorist groups come in to the scene and take over the country.
Ali Nazary, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme.